What's up, everybody, and welcome back to the episode number 16 of the Flying Knee KO podcast. My name is Victor Vasquez, and today we are going to be covering UFC 261, which took place last Saturday, April 24th, 2021. My goodness, that card was headlined by 3 title fights. Main event, Kamaru Usman versus Jorge Masvidal. Rematch, part 2 of their match that they had last year at Fight Island. Then you had Valentina Shevchenko taking on Jessica Andrade. And then the last title fight was Thug Rose versus Zhang Weili. So many great, iconic moments that happened on this main card. It was just so incredible. And really, I got to really digest it after a few days that I've watched it. And I really want to just break down each one of those fights that appeared on the main card. Prelims were also very good. But again, today I'm just going to be focusing on that main card. So let's just jump right into it to the first segment that I like to call.
I'm here with the winner, Derek Lewis. Derek, why'd you take your pants off?
My balls was hot.
I understand.
That's right. This is the Hot Ball segment where we go over the hot news of the prior UFC, either fight night or pay-per-view. In this instance, we're going to be going over UFC 261. What was that one hot news or hot item that came out of the event, actually? And I got to say it's going to be a cop-out, but it's the entire event overall. It was the first UFC event in over a year. That is right, a year where there was actual fans in attendance. There was about 15,000 fans. It was in Jacksonville, Florida. Obviously, that Florida's had very lenient rules in regards to the entire pandemic. But again, they were the actual first sporting event to have full-on fans. Some fans didn't even have masks on. So it was very incredible to see. On the one hand, you start thinking, well, okay, is it going to be really a safe event to have all these fans in one place? Is it too soon? And on the other hand, you started noticing, you know what? There's an energy missing. And not only UFC events, but sporting events worldwide. I mean, you notice that the fans just added that extra energy and adrenaline to all these fighters. And you could tell as fighters came out in their fighting entrances, they were just so pumped to be there with 15,000 people screaming and chanting their name. So obviously there's going to be pros and cons. You're going to have folks on both sides saying maybe it was too soon to have that type of event. And others are going to say, you know what, this is probably what the event just really needed. You needed that type of energy to show the world that, you know what, we're getting out of this craziness that was 2020 with the pandemic. And now we're kind of moving on to the next phase. So the entire event was overall, I would say, a success for the UFC. They had great fights back to back. It was so incredible. Let's break it down from the main card. I want to start off with Anthony Smith versus Jimmy Crute, the main card opener. 2 light heavyweights that are trying to find a way into that top 5 of the light heavyweight division and get a crack at Jan Blachowicz, who is the current champion. So now these 2 guys, Jimmy Crute and Anthony Smith, are looking for a way to kind of get into that title opportunity. Anthony Smith has been there. He fought John Jones. He ended up getting an illegal knee. He ended up continuing to fight, and he went all 5 rounds with John Jones. Didn't come close to getting that victory, but he's trying to find his way back to try to get another crack at the championship at the light heavyweight division. Whereas Jimmy Crute from Australia, he's just an up-and-comer in this division, trying to make a name for himself, trying to get into that top 5 for the first time in his career. And he had to get a tough challenge in Anthony Smith. So what happened? It only lasted 1 round, and it was just very back and forth in that 1 round. You had Anthony Smith mixing up his offense very well early on. He was throwing nice little calf kicks, and landing a few 1-2 combinations on Jimmy Crute. Now, Crute did a really good job to absorb all that kind of contact and threw a few of his own kicks as well, even a few body kicks. One typical shot right there that Smith likes to use in his prior fights was a nasty jab. This jab in the first round stunned Crute a few times. It just came so quick that he just didn't see it coming. He didn't have that reaction time to get out of the way of that jab, and it just boom, got him right on that chin. Ended up stumbling him a little bit. He didn't fall, but he still did a really good job to kind of get back into it in that first round. In the past year, calf kicks are now becoming the new weapon for all MMA fighters. And that's what we saw in this specific fight as well. Anthony Smith ended up throwing a calf kick that landed behind the knee of Crute. and his leg immediately gave out. You could see that his foot just could not plant itself, and it immediately dropped to the floor. Jimmy Crute survived the first round, escaped without getting harmed, but as soon as he went to his corner, you could hear it through the microphone that his leg was compromised. He could not move it. He could not stand on it. A doctor ended up coming in, checking out his leg, and he tried to take a step, and he just immediately stumbled. He said he wanted to continue to fight, and he could not do it. He just could not prove to the doctor that he was 100% ready to go for that second round. So the doctor ended up calling it. Unfortunate event that happened for Jimmy Crute in that main card opener. He was really excited to kind of have that opportunity to face a top name like Anthony Smith on a great main card. And it just sucks to see him kind of go out like that. But luckily for him, his leg is now doing fine. But it's just Anthony Smith with a great technical calf kick that landed it right on the back of that knee, and it just struck a nerve. And that nerve just immediately gave out on Jimmy Crute's lead leg, and he just could not continue from there. So congratulations to Anthony Smith, who started off the main card with a victory. He actually has the most light heavyweight finishes since 2018. That's already his 6th finish in that division. And we're going to see what's next for Anthony Smith in the next segment that I go over in this Flying Knee KO podcast. All right, as great as this UFC 261 main card was, here's going to be the very low moment of that card. It ended up coming from Uriah Hall versus Chris Weidman. These two middleweights had fought, I believe, 10 or 15 years ago when they were both starting off in their MMA careers. Uriah Hall was undefeated in his career. He was the big shot. And then he ended up facing Chris Weidman, and Chris Weidman actually delivered his first loss to Uriah Hall. And now from that moment, they've now come full circle and are facing off once again in the middleweight division. And why I mentioned a little bit earlier that this is probably the low of the pay-per-view is the fact that there was another injury that occurred on this one. But this one was just so severe that it's so nasty that if you didn't watch it, oh man, I would not advise anybody to watch that replay because it's just not an easy sight to see. But just to walk it through on this specific podcast, in the first 15 seconds, Weidman ends up throwing a leg kick, and he threw it with a lot of force. But the problem was that Uriah Hall just had his knee kind of pointed outwards as soon as that leg kick came. And as soon as that kick connected to the knee of Uriah Hall, Chris Weidman's leg ended up snapping. And I didn't realize it when I first saw it until I saw him fall right on his butt when he tried to plant that right leg. It was just unbelievable because as soon as I saw it from the side of my eye, you could see his leg completely bend like it was a rubber band. It was the most disgusting thing I think I have seen live. I wasn't a fan just yet when Anderson Silva ended up breaking his leg against Chris Weidman, which is very ironic that Chris Weidman now also broke his leg in a similar fashion as Anderson Silva off of a leg kick. So it's just amazing how this MMA game works and how it just plays out. Lucky for Chris Weidman, he was stretchered off by the medical team at the event, and he's also had successful surgery as of Monday, April 26th. So good news for Chris Weidman. Hopefully he makes a speedy recovery, but obviously a terrible way to get a victory for Uriah Hall. He didn't even throw a strike. The UFC team, I believe, even showed it on the actual event that Uriah Hall is actually the first person to get a victory without even throwing a single strike. So unfortunate night for Chris Weidman, who ended up getting a nasty injury. I just feel so bad for him that he had an entire training camp. Same thing goes with Uriah Hall. I feel bad for both guys that they had to go through such a grueling training camp to prepare for this fight and it just not even falling through because of an injury. But again, sounds like Weidman will make a full recovery after he had surgery. And for Uriah Hall, hopefully he's able to get another fight rebooked immediately. That way he can kind of just get out all that energy that he's been kind of building up to in that training camp. But unfortunate for both guys that they couldn't even compete in such a great main card. That was definitely the low moment and just a start of a crazy roller coaster that we're about to get into. All right, moving on to the next fight, Valentina Shevchenko versus Jessica Andrade. This is the first of the 3 title fights at UFC 261, and boy, was it intense. Valentina Shevchenko, again, the most dominant flyweight champion that there has ever been in the UFC. She's been the only flyweight champion, but she just keeps knocking out and completely obliterating these contenders that come up to her. she seems to not have much of a challenge as she goes in there. Just to kind of explain this right off the bat, Valentina Shevchenko used a lot of her wrestling, and I think it surprised not only me, but the entire commentary team and everybody really that was covering the fights. A lot of people thought that when Valentina Shevchenko and Jessica Andrade were to clinch up, that's when everybody thought, okay, this is where Andrade probably has the advantage. She has just much bigger upper body strength. She might be able to bring Valentina Shevchenko down, maybe get into her a very desperate position where she can try to get some type of a submission. But that was completely the opposite. Valentina was in control of the clinches, and she ended up getting 5 total takedowns in the first round. She also landed a nice 1-2 combination that kind of stumbled Jessica Andrade. And then as soon as they got, down to the canvas for a takedown, Valentina had a few attempts for a rear naked choke, but Andrade was always calm. She's, again, a great jiu-jitsu fighter. So she was able to hand fight and escape that specific rear naked choke. Some way, Jessica Andrade was able to survive that first round. So after that first round, it immediately kind of changed my whole perspective. Now you start seeing Valentina in complete control. There's no harm coming to her. She feels that she is confident in every area of that specific octagon, whether it's on the feet, whether it's on the ground, no matter where they were, it starts looking more and more like a Valentina Shevchenko fight. So as the second round begins, once more, another takedown in favor of Valentina Shevchenko. She was able to bring down Jessica Andrade. Andrade could not do anything about it. She tried her best to stay on her feet along the cage. No success for her. And what's worse is that Valentina Shevchenko ends up getting another crucifix. She ended up getting that crucifix finish against Jennifer Maia in her last fight. She gets it again against Jessica Andrade. Knocks up both of her hands. Starts dropping some elbows, I like to call them. Valentina Shevchenko just dropped those elbows, ended up cutting up Jessica Andrade's face, and the referee had no other choice but to stop the fight. Valentina Shevchenko defends her flyweight title against Jessica Andrade, and just like I mentioned at the beginning of this, there's just nobody on her level in that flyweight division. So it's going to be very tough for the UFC matchmakers to kind of come up with another contender that can try to challenge Valentina Shevchenko. And she even said in her post-fight interview, I mean, anybody can come and get it. Anybody can come and try to take that title away, but she's just going to work that much harder to continue to find new skills to beat these contenders. So awesome to watch one of the greatest, not only women's MMA fighters, but greatest MMA fighters of all time in Valentina Shevchenko. All right, guys, co-main event time. It was Thug Rose versus Zhang Weili, the strawweight champion. She just came off, Weili did, off of the fight of the year in 2020 when it was Joanna Jędrzejczyk versus Zhang Weili. They went 5 rounds in Vegas, and it was just such an awesome fight. Again, another iconic moment for 2020. They had the best fight of the year. Probably it's up there with not only the best women's fight of all time, but one of the greatest MMA fights in general. So now we have Thug Rose versus Weili, which a lot of people thought this could be fight of the night. This could live up to that expectation, that bar that Joanna and Weili set last year. And boy, was it the opposite, because Thug Rose does it again. And what I mean by again is that she pulls off the crazy upset with a spectacular knockout. I mean, she does it with a head kick. Beautiful. Lands flush on Zhang Weili. And it just completely flatlined Zhang Weili. She just, her knees and legs really gave out as soon as that head kick landed right on the chin. Her hands were really, they weren't low for Zhang Weili, but it seemed like she was anticipating a body kick from Thug Rose. And so as soon as that kick went up, there was just a perfect opportunity to land it right on the chin of Zhang Weili. Again, drops her to the floor. Rose ends up landing a few hammer fists, and you could tell that Zhang Weili was not defending herself, so the referee had to stop the fight. In 1 minute and 20 seconds, Thug Rose Namajunas becomes the new strawweight queen in that division, and she's actually the first women's fighter actually, to recapture a title that they've lost. No other women's MMA fighter in the UFC has been able to recapture a title. Not Ronda, not Joanna, and now it's actually the first time being done by Thug Rose. So now she is the champion. And she just had such an emotional moment after the fight. She was just in disbelief. She was jumping up and down. And what was crazy is that even before the fight started, when Bruce Buffer was announcing their names, you could see that she was mouthing off something to herself. It ended up being that she was saying, I'm the best. I'm the best. I'm the best. And Joe Rogan asked her about it. She's like, what were you saying? Were you saying I'm the best? And she's like, I am the best. And she deserved to call herself that on that night because she just put on one of the most beautiful knockouts in UFC history by landing it on such a dominant fighter like Zhang Weili. Again, unfortunate for Zhang Weili. This is her first loss in 21 fights. She was actually on a 21 fight win streak, and so that comes to an end. She was in a little bit of disbelief. She did not believe that the fight should have been stopped. She was a little frustrated with the referee, but I think it's just because of the flash KO of that kick. She just didn't see it coming, and she just probably lost a little bit of consciousness and then came back, and she was surprised that it was all over in a minute and 20 seconds. Again, that was such a great moment. I was up on my feet in my living room just jumping up and down, yelling because I could not believe that kick just landed so flush on Zhang Weili. Such a great thing to watch. So if you guys haven't seen the highlight, please do so wherever you can. Just look it up, and it's just an awesome moment. And again, another moment that just gets added to this great UFC year so far in 2021. All right, guys, this is the main event of the specific hot ball segment, and we're going to cover the main event of UFC 261, Usman versus Masvidal. This one, again, before the fight started, I was very curious to see how Masvidal was going to change up his game plan. Again, they mentioned it so many times in the promo, but no more excuses. No more, oh, I only have this 6 days notice to fight you. Now it's both guys facing off fresh, coming off of 6-week or 8-week training camps, knowing exactly what the game plan was going to be to finish the other guy. So I wanted to see, okay, how would Masvidal come out? You know, would he be able to stop or stuff any of the takedowns of Usman? Would Usman's striking be a problem now, considering that the last time they fought, there wasn't much striking between the two? So let's start off. The first round was close between both guys. Usman ended up landing some heavier shots that you could see started pushing back Masvidal. And then, as no surprise to anybody, Usman ends up getting the takedown on Masvidal. However, Jorge did a really good job to just, on the ground, do some real good elbows and damage on Kamaru Usman. So he didn't just stay still. He was just calm, cool, collected, and in the guard just started throwing elbows at Kamaru Usman. He even landed a nice knee as soon as Usman kind of came in, but obviously didn't phase Usman that much. And then we get into the second round. I'm already hyped on this specific main event. I was hoping that they would go another 5 rounds. And boy, was I wrong, because in the blink of an eye, we saw one of the most picture-perfect KOs in UFC history. And it was Usman with a nice 1-2 combination and lands a flush right hand on Jorge Masvidal's chin that immediately just explodes all the sweat over his head. He immediately drops to the canvas, and then Usman finishes it off with 4 hammer fists. Herb Dean immediately runs in, stops the fight, and it is over in the second round. Kamaru Usman has defended his title for the 4th time as he KOs Jorge Masvidal. This is the first time that Masvidal in his career has ever been KO'd. The only time he's ever been finished is really by some type of inverted triangle. But this is actually the first time via strikes and punches. So it was unbelievable. Again, another moment. I was thinking, okay, how could I get even more hyped than seeing that high leg kick from Rose Namajunas? Oh, here comes Usman with a perfect right hand right across the chin of Jorge Masvidal. Literally, all of that punch caught the chin of Masvidal. I'm surprised that his head is still on his neck, because that was just one of the most savage punches I've ever seen land in any UFC fight. It was perfect. And I mean, it was just unbelievable moment. I once again started screaming at the top of my lungs because I could not believe what we had just witnessed. And Usman's just again proving it. He is the best welterweight in the UFC, and he's making his name now. He's adding to his resume. He's trying to get closer and closer to GSP, and obviously that's a very tough task, but He has got the tools. He is just continuing to improve. And the striking now is becoming his strong suit. When everybody thought, well, it's only his wrestling. That's all he's got. No, not anymore. This guy's striking has just evolved with Trevor Whitman as his coach. And it's just beautiful to watch. Kamaru Usman shuts everybody up now. And now he's really lapping guys now. He's going to start lapping everybody because depending on who he has next as an opponent, it's going to be very interesting to see how he can now use his striking and his takedown offense to try to stuff and stop any challenger from getting close to his title. Guys, what an event. I loved it. I'm going to call it out. It's probably my recency bias, but really this is probably the best event of 2021 already. And to me, it's probably one of the best main cards in the last couple of years. It's just incredible. Even with the scary moment of Chris Weidman and breaking his leg, it was just so awesome to watch. These fighters put on such a show, from Rose to Valentina to Kamaru Usman. Congratulations to all fighters for really putting on such a great event in front of the first live audience in a long time. All right, guys, I'm going to move on to the next segment where I like to fantasy book a lot of the different types of matchups for the winning fighters. Again, I like to have fun with this one because I just want to see even more exciting matchups. And this segment is actually called...
Fourth round, and I knocked him out in the fourth round. You can call me Mystic Mac because I predict these things.
That's right, everybody. Mystic Mac is going to try to predict. I'm not going to try to predict who won or who lost. Rather, I'm going to predict who these fighters are going to fight next. And I'm only going to be focusing on the winning fighters. So let's start off with Anthony Smith. Like I mentioned earlier, ended up getting the victory over Jamie Crute after that TKO from a calf kick. I wouldn't mind seeing Anthony Smith face off in a rematch against Alexander Rakic. Again, some of the actual light heavyweights are already taken in regards to different fights that they have booked throughout the year. But a rematch against Alexander Rakic would be a good opportunity to determine who might be the next number one contender for Jan Blachowicz. Another fighter that's out there is actually Magomed Ankalaev. He's actually on a 6-fight winning streak. And so that would be, again, another opportunity for Anthony Smith to face off against a new up-and-coming face in that light heavyweight division and show the world that I'm not going anywhere if he can knock off a guy that's on a 6-fight win streak. So that's what I think should be next for Anthony Smith. Moving on to Uriah Hall. Unfortunate for him, he did get the TKO victory, but he already said in his post-fight interview that he would love to give Chris Weidman the rematch as well. He obviously deserves it considering that they didn't even fight in that second fight. But while he waits for that specific matchup, I would really love to see Uriah Hall face off against Darren Till or Kelvin Gastelum. Darren Till and Gastelum both came off of losses. Again, Till ended up getting injured. I believe it was some type of a collarbone injury. So hopefully if he's able to return in the next couple of months, I wouldn't mind seeing Uriah Hall face off against two of these big names in the middleweight division. And if Uriah Hall can, again, rack up some more victories, he can get that much closer to fighting for the championship. All right, next up is Valentina Shevchenko. I kind of spoiled it when I was talking about her fight against Jessica Andrade. Again, her level is just so high up in that flyweight division that it just doesn't make sense who to give her next. A lot of people are already thinking, you know what, why not just have her fight the trilogy with Amanda Nunes? But, I mean, I wouldn't mind it. I would love to see it. But again, I think more and more folks are trying to see fighters stop jumping to different divisions and trying to get belts. Rather, have somebody just be a dominant champion like Valentina Shevchenko has been in that flyweight division. So I started thinking, why not offer a fresh matchup? Maybe a few ladies that she hasn't faced off. So there's actually a couple fighters that are going to fight in June of this year. It's actually Lauren Murphy versus Joanne Calderwood. Both fighters haven't faced off against Valentina Shevchenko. So I would like the winner of Lauren Murphy versus Joanne Calderwood to face off against the champion, Valentina Shevchenko. Hopefully they can get it done later on this year so we can see the Bullet try to defend her title, or we might see another champion in that flyweight division. All right, next is Thug Rose, who put on such a spectacular KO over Zhang Weili. It's still tough. I don't know who had my favorite KO, whether it was Thug Rose or Kamaru Usman. But again, props to Thug Rose for recapturing the strawweight title. And it seems like it's going to be a rematch in the horizon for Thug Rose. Is it a trilogy rematch with Joanna Jędrzejczyk? Or is it going to be a rematch between Zhang Weili again? This one's really the hardest one of all 5 fighters. I actually would if it was actually deciding between Joanna or Zhang Weili, I'd actually prefer Zhang Weili. I know a lot of people would think, well, she just got brutally KO'd, so what more is there for Rose to show? How is she going to improve on that? And I totally understand that. But again, I love to see differences between fighters when they face off in rematches. And I would love to see the adjustments that Zhang Weili and her team are going to make. What is she going to do now to avoid that head kick? What would have happened if they actually would have fought, round after round and showing the technical striking between two fighters? And I think that's what excites me more than seeing Joanna and Rose 3. I think because I've already seen Rose beat Joanna 2 times, I feel like I don't really need to see it again. Don't get me wrong. If it gets placed on a next UFC main card, I'm going to watch it. But if I had to choose between the two, I'd rather see Zhang Weili rematch Thug Rose and see what differences can come out of that specific bout. All right, everybody. Last fighter is Kamaru Usman. And, what more can you say about Usman? The guy is just a nightmare for everybody in that welterweight division. In the press conference, Dana White mentioned that Colby Covington is the number 1 contender, so he would probably be next. I don't mind that fight. I would love to see Kamaru Usman versus Colby Covington again. The first fight, I believe it was like in 2019 of December. It was a 5-round war, back and forth, and Usman finished Colby Covington, breaking his jaw and finishing him in the 5th round. It was just an amazing performance, and it's really just goes to show you how much Kamaru Usman has grown since that fight, especially from his striking. So that's, again, the matchup I wouldn't mind seeing. If it wasn't Colby Covington, there's 2 other names that I would love to see get into that title picture. Leon Edwards and Wonderboy, Stephen Thompson. Leon Edwards actually is going to fight against Nate Diaz in the next couple of months. So if Leon Edwards is able to get through Nate Diaz and maybe even put on a heck of a performance against one of the Diaz brothers, I wouldn't mind seeing him be the next contender after Colby Covington as well. Now, the next name I said was Stephen Wonderboy Thompson. Wonderboy just keeps getting overlooked. It's not even his own fault that he's not able to get a fight in order to get himself back into the title picture. So I really want the UFC to stop overlooking Wonderboy, and I would love to see him and his style of striking face off against Kamaru Usman. I feel like it would remind me a lot of Tyron Woodley versus Stephen Wonderboy Thompson the first time they fought, where they was trying to uncover the secret of how to stop Wonderboy. And again, that would be a great challenge for Kamaru Usman. And both of those guys, Leon Edwards and Wonderboy Thompson, would be good names to add to the Nigeria Nightmares resume. All right, everybody, that is all I want to discuss about UFC 261. I know I usually do more segments, but I feel like I needed to talk about every single fight on that UFC 261 card because it was just so damn incredible. I loved everything about that card. Obviously, that one moment of Chris Weidman and his leg was just horrific. I never want to see that type of injury again. But I'm so glad that he's able to have successful surgery today, and hopefully he recovers well and he is all healthy and good. Guys, thank you so much for being able to listen. Make sure to check me out next week as well. My name is Victor Vasquez. This has been episode 16 of the Flying Knee KO podcast. I'll talk to you guys next week to cover more UFC fights and events.